So we're coming into the Unit 2, which is about management, leadership and decision making. And as you know, I began preparing to take this course about this time last year. So from this time last year, I was reviewing and learning all the different aspects that I would need to for A-level business, and reviewing what I'd learnt in my degree. And because of that, you cover the first few chapters over and over again, you know, starting at the beginning. And because of that, you begin to think that those chapters are easier and less technical and therefore perhaps less important. But I think if you consider, even without being specifically political at the moment, if you consider the situation that we're in at the moment, where we're all working from home, and you look at the different ways that world leaders have led their countries, and also different leaders of different organisations, you can really start to see the difference that different management styles and different managers and the skills that they have bring in. And where there is a leader or a manager of a country who has taken in all the facts that they can, they've spoken to all the specialists that they can, and taken in all the data that they can, they have then made a best guess on what they can predict or decide with the knowledge that they have, recognising that the knowledge may be flawed and may be updated. And then, if they have gone in and they have been very clear and concise about what actions they want their team or company or country to take, those people who are under them have been clear in their understanding of what it is that they must do, and they have acted accordingly. Whatever you think of our current government, and whether you think that the actions that they've taken are right or wrong, it's very interesting to see that specific instructions have been given on particular days. They've explained to the people why those decisions were made, and in following days, if those decisions have got to be changed, they have been clear why those changes have been made. They've also put into this context the psychology of the decisions they have made, and, for example, realised from the beginning that it would be very difficult for people to be entirely isolated, and tried to hold off because there was a feeling, right or wrong, I'm not giving any politics here, there was a feeling that if they gave a more soft approach to this, that people would be able to follow that instruction more strongly and more tightly, rather than pushing against a very firm instruction. With that, and giving instructions to general members of the company or country, they have also, you can see, put into place instructions for specific departments. So within a company, that could be the operations department where their things are being built, where specific instructions are given as to what, how much and when things need to be produced by, what the expectations are. And also within the financial departments, fairly swift. I recognise there are, major problems that people are finding, but fairly swift, clear information has been given out about financial status of different people within the organisation, or, as I say, the country. If you compare that to some other countries where the instructions have not been clear, then the people within that country or company we're thinking about that, have not been certain of which direction to take. Some have done what they thought was correct, others have changed and done what they thought was the new instruction. So that clear instruction with reasoning is really helpful. And then also you can see that possibly in other countries, information about who needs to produce what is not very clear. Information is changing from time to time. So those who are in the operations department or manufacturers within a country aren't certain what is required of them and where that production has to go. So I'm finding it really fascinating, this microcosm of seeing different leaders and how they have given instructions or not. That's not to say whatever you think of the politics, whatever you think of how people are managing, those are some observations. So I'm beginning to think that this leadership management, what a manager does and how they do it, is one of the most important units in the course. So for your revision, we look at what a manager does. Remember, there are key terms down here that you should become familiar with, you should learn. Look at what a manager does. And as I say, from the very beginning, when I've looked through this, there are not any huge surprises. A manager plans. A manager organises different departments. A manager should lead and direct people to what action they should take, and they should control, and they should have an idea of what is happening, and if something is going wrong, of a way that they can fix that problem. So those words in themselves seem very simple, but if we look, as I say, at the current situation and then transfer that to how a company itself could be managed, you can see the gigantic difference between the running of companies with two different leaders. If they have not planned for the future, then they won't know which direction to go. If they have not organised things and led things, then their departments do not know what is expected of them. And if they don't know what's expected of them, then they won't all put their effort into the right direction. And also, a manager must be there. There will be problems all through the running of a company, and a manager must be there, able to sort out a situation and come up with quick solutions. That leads us then onto some of the theories of motivation, and we'll look at this again in Unit 6 about motivational theory and human resources. So there are a few theories, and again the core of these are not difficult to understand, but they are worth recognising the very valuable difference that these theories can make, and that managers recognising these theories will make a huge difference to the way that their company runs. So some of those models that we've seen are McGregor's theory X and Y. McGregor says that there are two ways of looking around things. One is that workers never want to work and they need to be pushed, and money is the thing that they want to do, but without that they just need to be punished if things aren't right. Whereas his theory Y suggests that workers enjoy work and would like good decisions and look to be doing better and hope that their managers give them the decisions and the opportunities to do that. We then have to consider, remember that a leader has to pull people through. So therefore, whereas a manager will often be seen as risk averse and hoping to keep things stable, a leader will be pushing people and the company into a new place, and will need to do that with some certainty. Finally, there are two models. Again, I could spend a long time looking at these in detail, but I think enough will be that you are recognise that these models exist. So one is the Blake-Mouton leadership grid. So it's enough that you recognise this is a model and that you learn the model and the structure of the model. And what it says is that there has to be a balance between your concern, your thoughts of keeping people satisfied, and your concern for getting a task completed. And he says that there are they say that there are 5 different positions, from the very worst, where you're not worried about getting the job done and you're really not worried about the well-being of your people, through to the absolute top end, where you're suggesting that a team manager would like the job to be done to its very best possible, and also want the very best from staff. It's the team manager. In reality, there is usually a push down to middle of the road. It is very, very difficult to get the very most out of people while having the very most concern for them for a long period of time. And the other model that you need to learn and you need to be very familiar with is the Tannenbaum-Schmidt continuum. We've looked through this. We know that there are manager-centered leadership, where the manager decides everything, right along, it's a continuum, through to subordinate or staff-centered leadership. You let them decide entirely. We have 7 different sections, and they are broadly broken down to the manager at the most. Manager-centered tells staff what will happen. The next one is that the manager's decided, but he or she will sell that decision to staff. The third in the middle is that they will take some ideas from the subordinates and some ideas from the managers. And finally, with share, that they will throw the whole decision making out to the subordinates to resolve. And finally, other phrases that are important for you include autocratic leadership. So that's very much like the TEL, the manager-centered leadership. The democratic, where a manager asks for ideas and support and comes to an agreement. Sorry, I'll put that in the middle for you. And then finally, the laissez-faire leadership style. This is more, again, over to the right-hand side of the Tannenbaum-Schmidt, where there is much more freedom given to the individuals. There are, as you recognise, arguments for and against each of those styles. If you are autocratic, you know which way the company will go. You tell your staff so they know exactly what they're going to do. Time isn't spent wasted for people to decide whether they want to do it like that or not. On the other hand, as you recognise, if you are autocratic, you lose some of those good ideas from other staff, and you may lose motivation. At the other extreme, the laissez-faire, while you are getting good ideas from staff, and they may be very motivated because they're given the option to make decisions, you lose some of that centrality of control, and it may be that decisions will take longer, they may be what the staff want the best, and may not be what's the most productive. That's where I'm going to end this video for now.